Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us for tonight's theme time. We're going to have fun and make some DIY snow globes. My name is Lisa. I'm with the Tampa-Hillsborough County Public Library, and we are ready to get started. So our goals for today, we're going to use ratios. We're going to learn how that works and how to get the right amount of glitter versus the liquid in our snow globe. We're going to design a winter scene. It can be as simple or as complicated as you want. I'm going to do a very simple one, and then maybe you can tell me how you're going to make yours. And then we're going to do that activity. I'll show you on my very simple design how I put that together, and then we'll have time to talk about how that worked. So for our supplies, we need a clean jar with a lid. So it can be any kind of jar. It can be a round one, maybe one with different number of sides. Anything as long as that lid closes nice and tight on there where the liquid would not leak out. So if you're maybe using it in a situation where you're afraid it would drop and break, maybe you would want to use a plastic one instead. But if you have a glass one, that can work. You'll just need to be very careful with not dropping it. You'll want a plastic figure, something to put inside your snow globe to create your scene. Now, that can be a small toy that fits inside the jar, as long as you have permission to use it. Or maybe you would create your own sculpture to put inside out of dried clay. So there are different ways that you can do it. If you make your design out of clay, remember that you'll need to seal it with a sealant that is waterproof before you use it. You might, maybe you went to a library program and learned how to use the 3D printer. That can be a great way to get a fun design to put inside of your snow globe. You'll also need glitter. It can be any kind of glitter, but what I have found works best is a chunky glitter. It usually will say super chunky or chunky glitter on the jar. It's going to be one that has bigger pieces, so not something that's a very fine one. We find that it works better when you shake it up. The very fine glitter sometimes sticks to the sides of the jar or to the design, and it doesn't float around as much as some of the chunky glitter does. You'll need enough liquid to fill up that jar. Now, we're using water here on the example, but you might find that if you are able to use baby oil, you'll get a better effect because it's a little bit thicker than water. So the particles, the glitter, it's a little bit slower as it floats. And then to seal that jar up, we want to use hot glue. Now that's something that you'll definitely need an adult to help out with. Make sure that that is plugged in and that's being safely used. And we're going to use that to attach our figurine to the jar. You can see on the screen here, we've got a quick example down here of what that looks like. If we're also going to keep the snow globe where we might be using it and handing it around, we're afraid if the lid accidentally gets bumped off that we would spill the water. You can use the hot glue very carefully to seal the edge of the lid to that jar, just to give you a little bit of an extra layer of not accidentally having it leak out. But again, we'll be very careful with that, and we'll have an adult help us with that hot glue. I did see that somebody had a hand raised. Unfortunately, the only way that I can get to your question is if you type it into the chat box. So for the person that had their hand raised, if you need me to stop and go back or had a question about a step, put that into the chat box. Even if it's doesn't have to be a full sentence, you can just put a couple of words in there. Just let me know what you needed to see again. All right, I am going to switch up my camera view here. Make sure that works perfect. Okay, so I'm showing you my workstation that I have set up for today. So I have my jar here. So mine is a jelly jar that I washed. And I have one of my Lego minifigs here that I'm going to use for my scene. I have my liquid here, and I mentioned that we can use instead of water, we can use baby oil. It makes that glitter float a little bit more slowly because it's thicker. And then for my glitter, I have a super chunky pale white glitter. You can see how big those pieces are. That'll make it nice to see. And now if you wanted to maybe gift this snow globe or have it out for decoration, you can always put a ribbon or something around the edge of it after you've sealed it. And I do have my hot glue gun ready, and we'll show you that in just a moment. I'm going to turn my camera off on my face and show you the activity here. So I've got the eye on the chat box. Just let me know if we need to look at anything again. So I will go ahead and take the lid part away and show you. So this is just the inside of the lid. You can see it's clean. And for my minifig, if you're using something that has a very small base, it can help if you have a flat surface that you look for, if you have a Lego minifig, to glue that down instead. It makes it a little bit more sturdy. So I'm going to get my hot glue gun here. And I'm going to put just a big gloop of it there. Gloop being a very precise measurement. And now that I have my hot glue glooped on there, just press that minifig. Now, something that you can do that we won't have time to do today because our program's not quite long enough. If you wanted to kind of disguise this base, you can put more glue down here on the surface and then actually glue some of the glitter chunks down there, and that will make it look like there are piles of snow on the bottom. So we're going to let this set for a minute and let that glue harden up a little bit more. And we're going to start filling in our liquid. Now, let me see if I can get a little bit more height here, make it easier to see. I will set my jar up on the ribbon. That way you can see it better as I'm filling it up. So for our ratio, we'd mentioned that we were using 1 teaspoon of ratio for our volume of liquid. So we are going to fill it up most of the way. Now, does anybody know why I would not fill it up all the way? Can you think of why I might leave room here at the top of the jar? If you can think of a reason I might do that, you can put that in the chat box, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So I've got my liquid filled up. And now I've scooped out some of my glitter. I'm going to try not to get it all over my workstation. I may or may not succeed. I'm going to carefully put that in there. And I'm going to give it a stir just to see what it looks like. Because if it looks like it might not be enough glitter, we can always add a little bit more. All right, so now we've got our glitter in there, and you see it's already starting to settle down to the bottom. And we are almost ready to put our little guy on. Now, if anybody guessed that the reason we want to leave some room here is because there's still stuff going into the jar, then they are correct. So we had to leave enough room to put that layer of glitter in so that it didn't overflow. But we also need to make room for the displacement. When we put this guy in, it will displace the water that's in there, or the liquid that's in there, and cause that to raise up a little bit. So this guy is pretty small, so we don't have to leave a whole lot of room. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the liquid here. And you want to get it almost as close as you can to filling it all the way up without overflowing. So I'm going to very carefully lower it down in, and I'm going to keep an eye on this level to make sure that it doesn't overflow. And once I have it in there, I'm going to very, very tightly close that lid. So we've got our little person in here, our little figurine, our little snow trooper guy. And we're going to leave it set for just a minute longer because remember, we hot glued him to the lid. And normally you would want to let that sit for a little while until it's all the way cooled down just to make sure that it sticks really well. But we don't have a very long program, so I wanted to make sure that you saw what it looks like. But you saw I closed that jar very, very tight. So something to be very careful with is when you're testing this, if you're not 100% sure that that jar is going to seal up well, you might want to test this over a sink instead of maybe over a desk. So you might want to do it over a sink so that if the jar is not as closed as tightly as you think it is, that it doesn't spill all over the place. But I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that I did okay. And, ooh, we have some success here. So I'm going to shake it up a little bit more. Look at that. Look at our little Lego minifig guy in his snowy scene. So let's see if we can put maybe a ribbon on this. I'll use a blue one here. Bring this over in front of me because I can't quite reach enough to tie it on camera. A little bow on it. There we go. And that is our snow globe scene. So this was just a very quick example of how you can make it. It can be much more complicated. You can use other found objects in it and put several pieces together and maybe create a play in the snow there, or maybe you're going to sculpt something and model something to place in there. But no matter what you make, we would love to see it. You can always send those pictures to us. We would love to see how your activities turned out. I'm going to bring my slides back up so that you can see the instructions again. And we will have those available. If you watch this as a recording on our YouTube channel, we will have the instructions on there as well. Let's see if we can get that pulled back up. There we go. Okay, that's better. So we'll pull the instructions and the supplies back up. Yeah, let me know how it turned out. If you want to learn maybe a little bit more about how real life snowflakes are made, how those are formed, you can check out Science Online. If you go to the library's homepage, hcplc.org/kids, you're going to see a link on there for Science Online. It has tons of activities and experiments and just general information on all sorts of really fun science activities. So check that out. There's also stuff for eclipses. We have another one of those coming up this year. And we have some fun books on Hoopla that you can check out as well. So Hoopla is a way that you can read books on a phone or tablet with your library card. Easy peasy. You can go to hcplc.org/ebooks. That will give you the quick link for downloading those apps. So we're pretty much at the end of our program. If you have questions, type those into the chat box. If you wanted me to go back and show you one of the steps again, just let me know. We can look at any of those again. I can show you an alternative if you're not sure if you have one of the things that we used today. We can look at that together and I can show you maybe a different way to do it instead. But if you're good for the day and maybe you think of a question later, you can always reach us after at hcplc.org/contact or give us a call at 813-273-3652. And remember, I said send us those pictures of your activities when you're doing them together at home. hcplc.org/stories. That's where you can submit your library pictures. Maybe you visited the library and did something fun there and got a cute picture. Send that to us, or send us your activities of library programs that you did at home. We would love to see them. We sometimes share those on our social media, so check that out and check that page out to see maybe what some of your friends might have been doing at the library. So we would love to see it, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's program. We don't quite get cold enough for snow here in Tampa, but we can have some fun with snow globes anyways. So thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope you had fun, and I will see you for our next Theme Time program. Check out our calendar, hcplc.org/events. We have theme programs in branches and online. Have a good evening, folks. We'll see you soon. Good night.